Check that. Cool. Awesome. Go ahead and grab the link here. Throw this here. Stream ping. Awesome. Let me go ahead and close out of here. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our first midweek dino class of summer. I hope we're all having a good start to our summer with June. Hello, Skylinks. How you doing? Welcome in. So yeah, this is our first midweek dino class. These are going to be happening a lot more often. Usually they will be on Wednesdays, but today was an exception as I have something to do tomorrow. So I thought we'd go ahead and get this out of the way here on Tuesday. But yeah. Good, are you? I'm doing good. I got into Epic the Musical the other day, and man, I can't stop listening to some of those songs. Really good stuff. Hello, Trophy Hunter. Hello. How are we doing? Spino getting nerfed again? Spino is not nerfed. These are animals. These are not monsters. They don't get nerfed. We just understand them more. And to be fair, Spinosaurus is such a weird animal, man. Like every time we find more bones, it changes just a little. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen anymore. We do have bones from every major part of Spinosaurus, and there is a supposed new specimen that might preserve more of the arms. Spinosaurus had some very strong and muscular arms, right? Which, you often don't really think about when it comes to theropods, because there's often the joke of like large theropods have the really teeny tiny arms. But no, man, like these are giant arms for its size and super muscular too. So I'd argue Spinosaurus probably has the best odds of throwing hands out of all theropods. So yeah. Oh, Dinoclast. Yes, hello. Hetzegopteryx opinion. Super cool as Darkaterasaur. It's probably one of the coolest examples of a non-dinosaur apex predator. And I know that like Quetzal can be seen as an apex predator as well. But Quetzal had contenders. They coexisted in Laramidia with things like Tyrannosaurs and whatnot. Hatzegopteryx was just full on out there. Like it had no competition. It was an uncontested ruler of Hatseg Island, and I think that is just super cool and unique. Spinosaurus walk on four legs? That used to be the idea, but as of recent discoveries, such as the hind limbs in 2014, that discovery is what kind of catapulted this idea of a quadrupedal Spinosaurus. But then in 2020, the same specimen that actually possessed the hind limbs was also found with the tail. So the tail kind of offered this other insight into how they probably postured themselves. And what the current consensus is that Spinosaurus was mostly bipedal. But given how big its front limbs are, there is the possibility of it standing kind of on its knuckles for a little bit, but probably would not walk around like that. Like it would probably, like if it was like hunched over looking for fish like this, it would probably put its front limbs down and like into the ground. Sir, hi, I'm a new student. Welcome in. I got Path of Titans. Awesome. Path of Titans is a lot of fun. Thank you. I'm gonna call you IZ because I can't pronounce that. But thank you, IZ, for the 34 roses. I appreciate it. How's the compy get its prey? What did they mostly hunt on? Compies, as of my understanding, are mostly seen as like scavengers. When it comes down to like what they would prey upon, my best guess would be that an animal of that size would be specialized in both scavenging corpses of larger animals, or they would actually be going after smaller lizards. Remember, dinosaurs aren't lizards, so that's like a whole different order of reptile. Or they would be going for mammals. Now, mammals were around during the time. They were not mammals in how we would understand them. Placental mammals were not very common during the Mesozoic. So the mammals that Compy would have been living with, or these like early mammals, would have been laying eggs. So that also offers another opportunity as well, and that is eating eggs. they probably ate eggs, scavenged, hunted small mammals, and hunted smaller lizards and stuff like that. So that is probably what they would be feeding on. How many dino names are there? That's a great question because you got Dinochirus, you got Deinonychus, Deinosuchus, and then there's also the fact that dino spelled that way and also the dino as in dinosaur also mean the same thing. So they both mean terrible. So you could just see dinosaurs as a whole as like their own little dino or dino thing. I think there's a few more. There's Dynamo Terror, but it's not spelled the same way as like Deinosuchus or Deinonychus or Dinocaris. It's spelled with a Y, so it's like Dyno instead of Deino. So as of right now, those are kind of the ones I can think off the top of my head. Deinosuchus is not actually a dinosaur, so I don't know if that counts. There's also, isn't there a Dinotherium? Isn't that like an elephant relative? There's also Dinotherium, I believe. So yeah. Was the bite force of Allosaurus? The bite force of Allosaurus has actually been something of a I dropped my left controller. Give me 1 second. There we go. The bite force of Allosaurus has kind of been this confusing thing for paleontologists for a while, as based off of all estimations, Allosaurus has a bite force that's only slightly stronger than that of a lion, which is very odd, since Allosaurus is like 9 times the size of a lion, right? So you'd expect it to have like this really, really strong bite force. However, there was a way paleontologists thought that Allosaurus could get around this, and this gets into something called the hatchet bite theory. The old hatchet bite theory suggested that instead of normally biting, what Allosaurus would do, it would open its mouth. Okay, so I'm gonna have Spinosaurus open its mouth here to kind of give you an example, and it would now here. Actually, hold on, wait. I have a better animal for this because this Spino doesn't open its mouth far enough. Let me grab my... Oh, okay. They've changed how avatars work in VR chat. That's interesting. Here we go. We'll go with Acro. So what the idea was is that they would open their mouth. And this guy still doesn't do it, but it'll work either way. They would open their mouth super wide, and Allosaurus could open its mouth to a 90-degree angle, which is just wild. So the idea was that they'd hold their mouth open, and they would slam the top of their jaw onto their prey. And then, after that, some paleontologists went back and did the math and did an analyzation of the skull and the structure itself, and they realized, oh, wait, if Allosaurus did that, it would break its face. So no. So the leading theory for like how Allosaurus got around this is either in numbers or in like as in like in groups, or they would be using their arms more often than their mouths. So yeah. Can I mimic the T-Rex call? Actually, I can. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Here. This guy has and I'm really hoping I set my sound up correctly. So here, check this out. There you go. First one, this one in my opinion, probably a lot more accurate, probably a lot closer, but it would be possible for them to make much louder sounds as well. But yeah, because Spinosaurus died due to injury to its back. That is possible, yeah. Maybe not like... There used to be this idea that if you snapped the sail of a Spinosaurus, since that's connected to the vertebrae, it would break the Spinosaurus's back and it would paralyze it. However, paleontologists went out and they tested that, and they found that the breaks would have been a bit more smooth, so that it wouldn't have actually influenced the vertebrae at all. So you would only really end up with a paralyzed Spinosaurus if the injury was like really bad. But of course, there are other factors like, you know, infection, stuff like that could very easily kill off the Spinosaurus if it was a really bad one as well. Was your favorite dinosaur? My favorite dinosaur of all time is Nanooksaurus hoglundi. It is a type of tyrannosaur that lived in northern Alaska during the late Cretaceous, roughly 70 to 65 million years ago. Its name means the polar bear reptile. And it is my favorite dinosaur of all time because it is a tyrannosaur that lived in the cold. I love the cold. And it is also probably big and fluffy. And much like Spinosaurus, it's also fragmentary. So it is not very well known, and I really like the mystery of it, you know? I think it's really cool. And give me 1 second. Thank you, Orlando, for the rose. Thank you, Lauren, for all the tiny dinies. Thank you so much for all that. Thank you, Creaky, for the rose. Thank you, Laura, for the tiny diny. Thank you, Mary Rodriguez, for the 2 roses, and thank you, Creaky, for the tiny dinies and the 12 roses. I appreciate it. Do I consider Oshalaya its own species or just a really geographically distributed Spino? I don't know. And I'm not sure we know either. Because the only fragmentary remains of Oshalaya that exist are actually nothing because they don't exist anymore. The 2 fragments that we had were supposedly parts of the skull. And those were destroyed in a museum fire. So the only fossil evidence of Oshalaya up until right now, or for now, are gone. And yeah, so in all honesty, I don't know. There's not enough fossil material for me to have an opinion one way or another. And besides, it's just really hard for me to have an opinion one way or another and be like confident in that opinion, you know? Give me 1 second. We're gonna go with we're gonna go with Ichthyovenator because I talked to Dino the other day, and he thought it was cool. But yeah. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Were squamites more diverse in the Mesozoic? Maybe. With squamites, you do have like the presence of marine reptiles. We don't really see many marine reptiles these days, and the ones we do see are like not fully marine reptiles. Obviously, you have like saltwater crocodiles. You have the marine iguanas and stuff like that, but those aren't like completely to the same level as aquatic as them. But in modern times, squamites are like the second largest group of reptiles on the planet. Second only to birds, because there's like 100,000 different species of bird alive today. So like they are the most numerous group of reptiles around today. So yeah. Is Spino the faster dinosaur in water? Hard to say. There's a lot of people who think Spinosaurus could swim. There's a lot of people who think it couldn't, and that it probably just ran on the bottom of the rivers like hippos do. I would say that it would probably be really fast if it did that, because have you ever seen videos of hippos running in the water? Horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. But yeah. Oh, we're catching up with chat. Yeah. Best book to get more knowledge about dinosaurs. There's a lot of different books that I would recommend. There is. I'm looking over at my. I actually don't know where that book went. There is. What was it? Was it like the field or the dinosaur field guide? Hold on. Where is that book actually? I don't know. I've lost it. That is unfortunate. But there's a lot of books that I can recommend. We actually had a whole podcast episode because I do have a podcast called the Paleopod. We went over like some cool books to look at. There's a book on Spinosaurs coming out soon. There is Dinosaur Behavior, What They Did and How We Know. There is also I would also recommend a really good book. I think it was it the Rise and the Fall of the Dinosaurs? I forget if that's like the actual name. It's been a minute since I've looked into it, but really cool book. Were pterosaurs covered in fuzz? Probably yes. What do you think of Oshalaya? Oh, they're not enough fossil material for me to think of Oshalaya, honestly. But yeah. It is. I have it. Yes. Okay. So, The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs. That is a really good book to start with. But yeah. What if Spino had a whole bite taken out of its tail? Could it survive? If it prevented that bite from getting infected, probably. Probably. That's like enemy number one in nature. If you take an injury, surviving the injury, if you survive the initial injury, that is the least of your worries now, because now you have to make sure it doesn't get infected. The second it gets infected, you're done for. That's kind of what it is. Like if especially if it's like a big one. Like in modern day, we don't really have to think about that, do we? Right? Because you get like a mosquito bite, you just like rub some ointment on it, put a band-aid on it, and you're fine, right? And out there in the wild, there's tons of stuff that you're exposed to that can easily get a wound infected and stuff like that. But yeah, because the Spinosaurus is painting on your car. Oh Lord. um But yeah, and then give me 1 second. Thank you, Leo, for the rose. Thank you, Revan, for the rose. Thank you, Anna, for the finger heart, and thank you, Tyrexia. T Exeria. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna call you TX. For the 4 roses of the Tiny Dotty, and thank you, Baby Prehistoric, for the Tiny Dotty. Hello, hello. Opinion on Carnotaurus. Carnotaurus is really cool. I actually have an avatar of Carnotaurus. Give me 1 second. Carnotaurus is actually, hold on. No. I have a better avatar than that one. Where's my main Carno? A lot of you will recognize this guy. But there we go. Carnotaurus is a really cool theropod dinosaur from the late Cretaceous of what is now South America. These guys are the second or third largest abelosaurid. They are thought to be very fast. Now, what you might not know about it, and then everyone immediately screaming toast. Yes, this is in fact toast. So what you might not know about it is that Carnotaurus is preserved from only one really well-preserved specimen. And it's really good. And I've talked about it before. It's missing a few tail vertebrae. It's missing most of its legs, everything from below the knee. So everything below the knee of Carnotaurus is kind of inferred from other abelosaurids and how their feet look. But other than that, these guys are super unique because of these giant horns sitting above their eyes. And these horns were likely used as a way of individual identification, mate selection, and stuff like this. Carnotaurus, obviously, since you've probably already noticed that these guys have super tiny arms, we're not using them for hunting. These guys had such small arms that they do not possess elbows, and that is it. But what's odd is that the arms are connected via a ball and socket joint, so they have like complete 180-degree motion. So it probably means that they were using them also for mating selection, like you see in Prehistoric Planet. But yeah. When we get hunted by an Allosaurus, what do? Die, I guess. I don't know. I'm not getting away from that. Are you kidding me? Especially depending on the species of allo. Yeah, no, I'm done. So they all have fuzz. Many I know this isn't dinosaurs evolved out of fuzzy feather. Probably. I can't give you a definite answer because obviously there will always be exceptions. Even with dinosaurs, like with theropods, a lot of theropods do have feathers. All living theropods have feathers. But we have evidence to suggest that Carnotaurus didn't have any. We have evidence that Ceratosaurus probably didn't have any. And most evidence of larger Tyrannosaurs probably didn't have any either. Now, they could have had small fuzz, sure, but, talking about the Tyrannosaurus specifically. So, I don't know. There will always be exceptions to rules and stuff like that. So, opinion on D-Rex, I think it's cool. I think it could be, depending on how it's handled in the movie, I think it could be really cool. Sauropod, smaller prey like cheetah? Probably, yeah, they probably did. Carnotaurus probably did hunt sauropods. There were a number of smaller sauropods in its formation. There was recently, I say recently, but it was a few months ago, there was Titanomachia, which is the smallest titanosaur we have ever found. I find it's so cruel that they find the smallest titanosaur ever and they name it Titanomachia. That's just rude, in my opinion. That's just rude. That's mean. But yeah. Is Barney a real dinosaur? You want to know what's funny about that? Do you want to know what is so funny about Barney the dinosaur? Okay, I did a really stupid amount of research into this. Did you know that Barney is canonically 200 million years old? Like, at one point, Barney's birthday happens, and he's like, I'm 2 dinosaur years old. And later on confirms that a dinosaur year is 100 million years. Barney is canonically older than the species he is a part of. Because he's supposed to be a T-Rex, which don't show up till 68 million years ago. I know this is a really stupid rant, but I just had to tell someone, okay? Yeah. What do I think of? Oh, we're learning a new dinosaur today. Hold on, give me 1 second. Hold on. Low. Rinha. The Rhinoceros. Oh, the Rhinoceros is a genus of carnivorous dinosaur that lived in the late Jurassic period in Portugal. Is one of the large predators discovered in the Rinha Formation and is probably competed with Corvival with Torvosaurus gurnii, Allosaurus europaeus, and Ceratosaurus. That is awesome. That's really cool. I love that. Interesting. I love learning about new dinosaurs. So sometimes people will bring up dinosaurs and I don't know them, so we get to do a little deep dive, or not really a deep dive, but a surface level dive and discover a new dinosaur, and that is always awesome. I love it when we do that. Yeah. Opinion. What's your opinion on Plateosaurus? Plateosaurus is really cool. All right, who here? So I'm guessing a few of you aren't really like, because I know sometimes I get people who aren't as into dinosaurs in my streams, and that's okay. I love teaching people about dinosaurs. So if you are one of those people, I would like to show off probably one of the strangest dinosaurs. Please tell me I saved that avatar. Did I? Yes, I did. Here he is. One of the strangest dinosaurs ever is Plateosaurus. Plateosaurus is a very strange prosauropod. So before the long-necked dinosaurs got into like their heyday, before your brontosaurs, your apatosaurs, your brachys, you have these guys. The prosauropods are very strange. And they are so similar in body structure in their early days to theropods. So there are some dinosaurs that we're not exactly sure if they are theropods or early prosauropods. One of those dinosaurs is Herrerasaurus. That one is still being debated. But then there was Eoraptor. Eoraptor was thought to have been an early theropod, but then later analysis of its fossils showed that it was actually a carnivorous prosauropod. And these guys are just strange, right? Just look at their body proportions. They look so odd. And if you ever watch the original Walking with Dinosaurs, you see Plateosaurus, but it is like an obligate quadruped for some reason. I don't really remember when that was like a popular idea, but apparently when they were making Walking with Dinosaurs, it was. You in VR? Yes, I am. What dinosaur is the best at swimming? Penguins. Penguins are the best. And yes, penguins are dinosaurs because they are birds, and birds come from dinosaurs, and birds are dinosaurs. So yes, penguins are probably the best. In terms of prehistoric dinosaurs, I'd probably give it to maybe Hauscaraptor. But there's always Hesperornis. Hesperornis seems to be a pretty good swimmer as well, based on its anatomy. So yeah. What do you think and know about the Eutyrannus? Eutyrannus is honestly one of my favorite dinosaurs ever. It is so cool. So, contrary to popular belief, Eutyrannus is not a tyrannosaur. It is a tyrannosauroid. It is not a part of the immediate family of Tyrannosauridae. It is a proceratosaurid. It is the second largest proceratosaurid, and Eutyrannus is very unique because it is about the size of like Allosaurus fragilis, but it is the largest animal ever found with evidence of feathering. Note that I said evidence of feathering, as other animals are thought to have had feathers. Other larger animals are thought to have feathers, but it is the largest animal that has evidence of feathering. And it is really cool. The place in which Eutyrannus is found is frequent to possibly seasonal snowfall, volcanic eruptions, stuff like that. It's really cool. Really, really cool formation that it comes from. But yeah. Ever heard of the Jurassic Coast on the Island of Wight? Yes! I had a friend for a while who lived on the Island of Wight, and they told me a lot about it. It was really cool. But yeah, something about Megaraptor. So that's actually a really interesting topic because... Give me one second. Have I favorited this avatar? Yes, I have. Okay, just making sure. So the interesting thing about Megaraptors is that we don't know a lot about Megaraptors, because they're a relatively new discovery in terms of like theropod families. But they're probably one of the most successful groups of theropods to ever live. They're called Megaraptors because when they found them, they found the hand first, and they thought the hand was a foot, and the hand has a singularly raised claw. But these guys are really cool. So they are either Celulosaurians or Cerulosaurians, or they are Carcharodontosaurians, or early Carcharodontosaurids, branch like basal ones. It's kind of gone back and forth. I'm of the opinion that they are either basal tyrannosauroids or they are Celulosaurians. Not so much of a fan of the Carcharodontosaurid idea, but these guys otherwise are really cool. You find them in South America. I think there was evidence of a few. There is some in Australia. Might be some in Africa. I don't know if there has been. It would make sense because like all the places that they're found are formerly known as the landmass of Gondwana. So yeah. Use VR chat? Yes, I do. Does Parasaurolophus walk on 4 or 2, or is it illustrated with both? I'm confused. It does both. So it would probably stay on 4 legs for a majority of the time, but if it had to run, it would possibly move into a bipedal stance and just haul, you know? I would recommend a video by Your Dinosaurs Are Wrong. They recently covered Parasaurolophus. I have not gotten around to actually watching that yet, but I'm assuming they will probably say something similar to what I've said, but maybe a bit more in depth. They'd give you like the research into it and like the science of like how that specifically. But yeah, Giganotosaurus. Giganotosaurus is really cool. And you can pronounce it Giganotosaurus or Giganotosaurus. Either way is technically correct. It is the largest Carcharodontosaurid. It is from South America. And it is nicknamed the Southern Giant. These guys are possibly taller than T-Rex. They are not heavier than T-Rex, as T-Rex was a lot more bulky and heavy. There is supposedly a new specimen that has been discovered that has not been described yet. I'm eagerly awaiting to hear that, but the skeletal anatomy of Giganotosaurus has been edited slightly, so we know now that Giga is probably a lot more closer in terms of skeletal anatomy to that of Tyrannotitan. Tyrannotitan is another Carcharodontosaurid from South America, so there has been a slight change in anatomy for Giga. Any dinosaurs not use eggs? Not that I'm aware of, and that would be very hard to prove. But yeah. Fastest Abelisaurids, that would all be based on speculation, as there are still people who would argue that Carnotaurus is or isn't really fast, because, you know, we don't have the legs of Carnotaurus, so it's kind of hard to get, like, a really accurate estimation. Some of the numbers I've seen are around 35 miles an hour, but in terms of, like, other Abelisaurids, that would be really hard to estimate, or I just don't know off the top of my head. Like, if we talked about Picnomenosaurus is only known from, like, a few fragmentary bones, so that, you know, be really hard to calculate because you don't know the rest of the animal. But yeah. How do we know different fossils are connected to the same genus of dinosaur? Comparative anatomy. You take a look at, so let's say you find a T-Rex in North Dakota, and you find another thing that might also be a T-Rex in Montana. Well, there are several things that you can do. One, geographically, they're pretty close. Two, you can look at the geography. Look what sediment layers they're found in. Okay, are they found in the same sediment layer? Looks like it. Okay, cool. So they're around the same time. All right, well, let's take the fossils and now let's compare them. Is there any overlap in terms of the anatomy of the fossils? Let's say one of them has a part of the skull, right? One of them has like the eyebrow ridge and the other one is far more complete and actually has it. So you can take the fragmentary one, put it next to the like more complete one, and go, okay, so these kind of match up. Now they're gonna be different because there's this thing called individual variation, right? You know how like literally every person you ever meet has like they're all different. Yeah, guess what? That applies to dinosaurs as well. So there are some that would be bigger, some that would be smaller, and there's also probably a difference in like the age for like how old or young some individuals were when they fossilized and or died and then fossilized. Um, it's just all of that, and like if all of that checks out, probably belong to the same genus. So yeah, was the most messed up dinosaur to ever exist? I don't know. I want to say Dilo, just because Dilo got messed up in terms of like the injuries that they sustain. Also, just the way that they would probably hunt things would be brutal. Because they don't have a very strong bite force. They can't like crush something's like windpipe with their jaws unless they had them in a very specific position. So they would probably be very savage animals. But yeah. Finally, U-Tyrannus is my new fave. Awesome. Sounds good. Can we see your favorite avatar? My favorite avatar is probably the Tarbosaurus. I'm going to be real. The Tarbosaurus avatar is just so nice. I love it. There we go. Hello. But yeah, and let me very quickly, thank you, Dexter, for the rose. Thank you, Coffee Dubs, for the rose and the heart me. Thank you, Manuel, for the nice to meet you. And thank you, Matthias, for the tiny diny. I appreciate it. But yeah. So what do you know about Therizinosaurus and how to spell the name? You're missing a few I's in there. But then again, I am dyslexic, so, you know, who am I to judge? Therizinosaurus is a herbivorous theropod from the late Cretaceous. They have the largest claws of any animal that we have ever discovered as of right now. Probably not used as weapons, probably used for mating selection as well as utility to pull down branches and eat them. They lived in the late Cretaceous of what is now Mongolia and China, specifically in the Nemegt Formation. They would have coexisted with things like Tarbosaurus, which I am right now, as well as Dinochirus and a few other sauropods. But yeah. What do we do if dinosaurs come back? They never left. They're still here. Not the non-avian ones. Like, you know, go look outside. There's, you know, the cardinal, the blue jay, all birds, really. You know, I mean, like, take a look at a cassowary. Take a look at a cassowary and tell me that's not a dinosaur. That's a dinosaur. That, like, cassowaries are crazy, man. Yeah. Is Majungasaurus the only known dinosaur to cannibalize? Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Cannibalization has been observed in tyrannosaurs. It's been observed in other abelisaurs. There's supposed evidence on Carcharodontosaurids. Nothing on Spinosaurs, I don't believe. But that group is like fragmentary as is, so like that does not surprise me. Whoa, thank you, Lauren, for all the tiny donies. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And thank you, Medic Riddles, for the tiny donny as well. What is the first discovered? If so, then that's unique. The first dinosaur discovered is, in terms of like first dinosaur named, was Megalosaurus. It's possible that the fossils of dinosaurs have been found all around the globe that inspired the unique mythos of dragons in every culture. Because you find dinosaurs everywhere. Dinosaurs have the skulls of reptiles. So, like, if you found a dinosaur skull, but you're in, like, the 13th century in the middle of Europe, you're probably not going to say, oh my god, it's an animal that died out millions of years ago. You're going to go, oh, it's a dragon. So, yeah, that's probably what inspired most of the mythos. But in terms of science, the first dinosaur ever discovered, or at least ever described, was Megalosaurus in 1824 in a quarry in Oxfordshire, England. It was originally thought to have been like a quadruped, but, you know, we've come a long way in paleontology, and we now know that it is a bipedal carnivorous theropod. So, yeah. Are Carnotaurus arms useful? It really depends on what you deem as useful. They were mostly vestigial, meaning they did not serve the purpose that they originally had. The most likely thing that their arms were used for was probably for mate selection, as their arms were attached to the shoulders via a ball joint. So again, 180-degree motion. So they would probably the most likely option that they had for that was the way that they're depicted in Prehistoric Planet by doing like the little dancey dance. Like you guys have seen that. If you've seen like the clip of the Carnotaurus like dancing with its little blue arms, that's honestly probably one of the, the most accurate depictions as of right now. Is Rio Venedatrix cool? Yeah, I think that one's a pretty sure it's a Spinosaurid, isn't it? Rio Venedatrix? I remember while I'm give me a second. Oh, Rio Venedatrix. Ah, yes, it is a Spinosaurid. Cool. By the way, real quick, if you have asked a question and I have not seen it, I know I look like a dinosaur. I am only human. So I can't see everything. If you have a question that you want me to answer, then you can go to the comment section of one of my most recent videos. I'll get to you as soon as I can after stream, and you can also join the community Discord, link in my bio. But the link's weird, so you'll have to open the link in a browser. We're not sure why it does that. We've been trying to fix that for ages, but it never fixes. So I do apologize for that. But yeah. Do you think any human from 2,000 years ago found the dinosaur fossils of a species that we don't know about? That is certainly possible, yes. But yeah. Think Dracorex and Stygimoloch are junior stages of Peki? Maybe. So there's a lot of research that's gone into that recently. There's a lot of discussions that I'm still hearing on that debate. It would not surprise me if they are. It would not surprise me if they were their own thing. I'll be honest. I'm not like super opinionated on that particular debate. But either outcome would not surprise me. But the debate is still kind of going on. I think as of now, Dracorex is seen as a synonym. Stygimoloch is kind of its own thing until we get more fossil material. So yeah. Dinosaurs have families? We actually do have evidence of gregarious dinosaurs, meaning they lived in groups. There is several specimens of tyrannosaurs that likely were in a family unit. The 3 Eutyrannus specimens were all different stages of growth, so they were probably a family. There was the Utahraptor bone bed that also had different growth stages for Utahraptor. There was the Dry Island bone bed. Dry Island bone bed had 26 individual Albertosaurus. But that is probably evidence of flooding, as flooding events like that can push animals of the same species into the same kind of area. And yeah, so that was probably caused by flooding, but you know, I guess it is an honorable mention for the topic. But yeah. Megalania actually, okay. Did you know this? Okay. To those of you that know what Megalania is a giant relative of the Komodo dragon. Guess what? I have a fun fact for you. It's not called Megalania anymore. Like, that's not its name. Like, it's not called Megalania at all. It actually got reclassified as Varanus priscus, meaning it is now seen as such a closer relative of the modern Komodo dragon. It is within the same genus. Megalania no more, Varana priscus. But yeah. Yeah. What chooses the second part of a dinosaur's name? The people who find it. Same people who, yeah, like if you find there's a new species of Tyrannosaur that was found, like a new species of Tyrannosaurus, so that means that like there's another member of the genus Tyrannosaurus, so they get to choose the species name. They chose Macraensis. Macraensis was the type of rock that it was found in, so yeah. But yeah. But yeah. All right, give me 1 second. Catching up with chat. But yeah. You think there are still prehistoric creatures in the ocean, kind of like coelacanth? I doubt it. Coelacanth is a rare exception, in my opinion. There are plenty of animals that you could describe as living fossils. Coelacanth is one of them. As coelacanth was thought to have been extinct up until like a few hundred years ago when they found it living off the coast of like South Africa or something. Um, Coelacanth was, kind of okay because it had always lived deep underwater and was kind of mostly unaffected by the extinction events that happened above the water and like on the surface levels of stuff like that. Sharks and crocodilians, they've been around for really long time, man. Those lineages have been around for ages, man. Obviously you've got like the nautilus, which is like just kind of a living fossil in and of itself. I highly doubt, like, Megalodon's dead. You're not gonna find Megalodon. You're not gonna find Toothsotoothus, which is that giant squid. Megalodon's gone. Toothsotoothus is gone. You're not gonna find a mosasaur or a plesiosaur. Those guys are all gone because they lived. Maybe not Toothsotoothus, but the other ones, they lived like on the surface. They would have been eating things on the surface, and I highly doubt they could have avoided extinction because of like all of that. So yeah. Thoughts on Epidecteryx? Very cool little guy. I'm gonna be honest. Favorite family of dinosaurs? Have to be the Tyrannosaurs. They are awesome. What about the dodo bird? Dodo bird was killed off by humans. Their extinction was exclusively caused by humans. They are same with the thylacine or the Tasmanian tiger, exclusively caused by humans. So yeah, they are dinosaurs because they are birds. So the dodo bird is a dinosaur. But yeah, they lived on one island in the middle of the ocean, and then I think like the Dutch showed up. And with things like ships back in the day, you'd have stragglers, like you'd have mice, you'd have dogs, you'd have cats, and then those got let loose onto the island. And the dodo bird had no natural predator, so it was not used to like these new animals. So rodents were eating their eggs, dogs were eating them, cats were eating them, humans were also like just killing them just because. We know they weren't really eating them because the note said that the dodo bird tasted awful, so they were probably just killing them because. But yeah, no, that was exclusively caused by humans. Really, really tragic. But yeah. What dinosaurs have the most complete specimens? I'd argue Triceratops. Triceratops actually has, okay, and I'm gonna tell you a little thing here. Okay. So, next time you go to a museum, check how the dinosaurs are mounted. Because there are going to be two ways that they mount skeletons, okay? Either they are going to run metal rods through the bones, or you are going to see the metal rods on the outside of the bones cradling the bones, as in they are like holding the bones in place, right? So that's how you tell if a specimen's real or not, right? And this comes back around, don't worry. So if the metal rods are going through the bones, that means it's a replica. It's mostly, plaster and stuff like that. If the metal rods are holding the bones, like they are like wrapped around them, that is a real fossil. That is a real thing that you're looking at. And most of the time, specimens of Triceratops are so numerous and largely incredibly complete that sometimes some museums will just have full-on like actual Triceratops specimens on display. That was the case for the first Triceratops specimen I ever got to see, which is technically the first Triceratops I saw ever was actually in the ground, and I helped excavate it. But then I went to like the Wyoming Dinosaur Center, and they had like a whole specimen of Triceratops mounted, and it was really cool. So yeah, but yeah. Can Grug take down a T-Rex? Doubt it. But yeah, hold on, wait. Where does I? Thank you, Humble, for the roses. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Skirpy Dop, for the tiny dinies. I appreciate it. Thank you, Bugs Bites. Thank you, Danny, again. Thank you, Christopher, Noble, for all of the gifts. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Jonathan. I still can't pronounce that name. I'm gonna call you Jonathan. Thank you for the rose. I appreciate it. Yeah, opinion on Macrothorax, really cool species. Mite Macrothorax, it is the largest megaraptorid we know of. Lived in South America. It is about as big as an Asian elephant, which is alarming. If the estimations for its size are to be believed, It is currently only known from fragmentary material, which is unfortunate. We hate to see it, but hey, at least it's better than the Mongolian Titanosaur. Um, but yeah, super cool Megaraptorid, late Cretaceous South America. Probably would have been living alongside the large sauropods back then, as well as possibly Carnotaurus. So yeah, one on one, I could take 3 T Rexes. I highly doubt that, especially since you're spelling the name wrong. There's supposed to be a dot where the hyphen is. You're supposed to capitalize the T, and there's no E in Rexes. It's like an animal, so it's like a thing. So you have to like put a apostrophe there. But yeah. Anyway, uh, how inaccurate was the Carnotaurus in the Disney dinosaur movie? Oh, don't get me started. So Disney's Dinosaur, like, it's a great movie, but in terms of accuracy, it's a bit off. And I actually talked about that very briefly in the Iguanodon video that I did. The Carnotaurus was way too big. That was because originally the Carnotaurus was actually going to be a T-Rex. So size immediately is off. The feature scales around its body were symmetrical when they should have been asymmetrical and just kind of randomly dotted around the body. And also just did not live with any of those animals. None of the animals in that movie actually coexisted with anything else. I mean, Parasaurolophus and Styracosaurus, yeah, those two probably coexisted. Iguanodon didn't coexist with any of those animals, and it's a whole mess. But yeah. Yeah, my favorite dinosaur, Nanooksaurus huglundi. What is your biggest dinosaur avatar? My biggest dinosaur avatar would probably have to be like the biggest dinosaur ever, or one of them. Where is it? Actually, I need to find it. Where's the boy? Where's the boy? Ah, there he is. Here we go. It's been a while since I've been in this avatar, so give it a second to load. Ah, here we go. So this is my Argentinosaurus avatar, and it is quite large. When did ornithomimosaurs go extinct? Probably around the time that the rest of the dinosaurs went extinct, KT extinction, stuff like that. Because you still have like Dinochirus and stuff like that at the tail end of the Cretaceous. Hello. This is Argentinosaurus. It is my biggest dinosaur avatar because it is the biggest dinosaur, or one of the biggest dinosaurs. But yeah, facts about Ankylo. Ankylo is pretty cool. So most of the armor plating on their body is something called osteoderms, which are bones embedded into the skin. And generally, like for a long time, we did not have the skull of Ankylosaurus. And we kind of just had the body. And for a while, the rest of the skull was kind of inferred from other Ankylosaurs until eventually we did find the skull. I forget exactly when we as in like a species or like paleontologists found the skull. I forget exactly when that is. But yeah, for the longest time, we just did not have the skull of it. There was one crazy book that existed way back in the day that suggested that Ankylosaurs had fleshy membranes between their arms and their legs, or like their front limbs and their back limbs, so that they could glide. And I'm like, what? I am yet to find the specific book that had that, but I remember seeing that vividly. It was so weird. Is Oviraptor a better mother than Maiasaura? I think both of them were really good at being mothers in their own way. What is the smallest dinosaur? The smallest dinosaur, the smallest dinosaur ever is the hummingbird, specifically the bumblebee hummingbird. That is the smallest dinosaur ever. The smallest dinosaur in the Mesozoic is possibly going to be something along the lines of Anchiornis, like Anchiornis, Microraptor, stuff like that. They are really small arboreal dinosaurs that lived during the Mesozoic, very bird-like as well, which kind of goes hand in hand with being arboreal. But yeah. Anyway, you tell me more about Baryonyx and Suchomimus. Baryonyx and Suchomimus were actually thought to be the same thing for a while, very briefly in the grand scheme of things. So baryonyx is found in England, specifically around, or like in Europe, specifically around England. The name meaning heavy claw. Suchomimus, which means crocodile mimic, is found in Africa, specifically like Central Africa. While the two are very closely related, they are seen as different genera because there is a large disparity in both size and geographical location and slight differences in morphology as well. But they are very closely related in the subfamily of the Baryonychidae or Baryonychidae. Yeah, Baryonychidae. So yeah, still really cool. The Baryonyx was the first dinosaur ever described as pescivorous, meaning it ate mostly fish. So yeah. But yeah, what education do you need to dig up dinosaurs? Well, it really depends on. We hit our live goal. I just noticed. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Thank you to Danny, Lauren, and Joda for all the tiny dinies and the rows. I appreciate it. That's awesome. So okay, so there are some places that will let you help dig up dinosaurs if you like pay to go on those trips. There is a group out in Hell Creek Fossils. They were kind of the people I joined with the first time I ever went on an expedition. You have to pay a good bit of money to go with them on top of like travel to the site. But there's not a lot of money in paleontology. So they have to fund that somehow. So that's how I justify paying that much to go and do stuff. And also, it is something that I really enjoyed. Like the first few days, I was like, this is miserable. I'm out here in the middle of Montana. It is in the middle of the desert. I'm sweating. I'm dehydrated, and this is awful. But I would 100% do it again if I could. So yeah. Now, in terms of like actually doing it as a paleontologist, obviously you got to get a degree in paleontology or geology. You take classes in geology, biology, zoology, possibly anthropology if you want to do that. So yeah. Thank you, Matt, for the heart me. Was there a fully fossil Ankylosaurus? Probably, if you're thinking about the fossil that I think you're thinking about, which is the Boreapelta specimen, that is an ankylosaurid, but it is a nodosaurid, so it's a bit different than an ankylosaur. I think that we have found like most of the bones of Ankylosaurus just from different specimens. So like you just kind of it's kind of like a collage. So you just like put all the bones there, and then you figure it out. So yeah, is Megasaurus real? I don't know about Megasaurus, but I know Megalosaurus is real. It was the first dinosaur ever discovered in 1824. But yeah, opinion on Utah Raptor? Probably my favorite dinosaur, or my favorite dromaeosaurid. Really cool, found in Utah. Really, just really big dromaeosaurid. So I think it's really cool. Were there any poisonous or venomous dinosaurs? No. Long story short, no. In the Mesozoic, no. I do believe there is a venomous bird alive today, but so like if you want to count that, then go for it. But in terms of non-avian dinosaurs, no. There exists no venomous or poisonous dinosaurs that we know of as of right now. There are plenty of dinosaurs that have been thought to have been venomous. Troodontid, there was a troodontid that was thought to be venomous for a while. There's also obviously Dilophosaurus, but I don't know if we ever had any idea that it was venomous. So yeah, no venom, unfortunately. Yeah. You switch to the Tyrannosaurus avatar. I can switch. Thank you, Matt, for the tiny dining, the 25 heart, the 25 roses. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll switch back to my favorite Tyrannosaur avatar. Hold on, where's my? Yes. We're going back to this one. Hello. You're welcome. Anyway, yeah. Any amphibious dinosaurs? Yes. Not if you mean amphibious as like semi-aquatic, then yes. If you mean amphibious as in amphibians, no, that's not how that works. But yeah, there were plenty of semi-aquatic dinosaurs. There obviously, oh, I didn't mean to do that. My bad. Obviously there is the Spinosaurids. Spinosaurs are obvious pick, probably mostly eating fish, stuff like that, based on like how their skulls are shaped. What you might not expect from a dinosaur that is semi-aquatic is for a iguanodontid or an iguanodont to be semi-aquatic. However, there exists a possibly semi-aquatic iguanodont called Lurtosaurus. It is in Path of Titans. It's also in Beast of Bermuda, and it is quite something. So the whole reason we think that Lurtosaurus is possibly semi-aquatic is because of bone density. Dinosaurs do not have very dense bones. In fact, they have hollow bones, much like modern birds. And what we find with Lurtosaurus, what paleontologists find with Lurtosaurus, is that Lurtosaurus had extremely dense bones. And you see that same adaptation with Spinosaurids. You see the same adaptation with penguins. You see the same adaptation with hippos. And so there is the idea that Lurtosaurus was a semi-aquatic iguanodon because of that, and it's actually super cool. But yeah. Do sauropods have really small heads? Or don't sauropods have really small heads? Yes, they do. Probably because, they weren't using them as weapons. Sauropod heads were probably just, I intake food here, I eat food, that's fine, works for me. Do I get enough food for having head this big? Yes, okay, we do that. No need to make bigger head. With larger carnivores, typically you see this adaptation of having bigger heads because guess what? Guess where all their main weaponry is? Right here. So they need the big heads. So yeah. Opinions on Indominus? That thing's anatomy makes no sense. I'm not a fan of it, but if you're a fan of it, you know what? Cool. All power to you. I hope you enjoy it. But yeah. Did Tyrannosaurus take down sauropods? There is, did it take them down as fully grown adults? No. Did Tyrannosaurus coexist with a sauropod? Yes. It lived, the Tyrannosaurs of Hell Creek probably did not, but the territorial range of Tyrannosaurus rex is thought to be very widespread, as you also find Tyrannosaurus macraensis down in Texas. So they would have likely seen at least Alamosaurus, which was actually the largest North American dinosaur to ever exist. Now, they would not go for the adults, because that's a very bad idea. Their likely targets would be the young, the elderly, or the sick. Because they are already weak, and it is possible that sauropod herds would kind of sacrifice them anyway. So yeah. Off topic here. If after stream, if you want to go and cry, go watch Dinosauria by Dead Sound. Go watch The Last Tyrant specifically. Actually, no, I take that back. Watch all of Dinosauria and then watch The Last Tyrant. It will make you cry, especially if you are a dinosaur fan. Anyway. What did Carnotaurus prey on? They would probably prey on the smaller sauropods in the region, as well as smaller prey and stuff like that. They were likely also would go for juvenile sauropods as well. So yeah. Is pterodactyl real? And if so, is it a dinosaur? So pterodactyl, no. Pterodactylus. It's pterodactylus. Pterodactylus is not big. It's got like the wingspan of like 3 feet, and that's it. It's a pretty small pterosaur, and that's what it is. It is a pterosaur, not dinosaur. Pterosaurs are an entirely different lineage of archosaurian reptiles. However, they are closer to dinosaurs than crocs are, but they themselves are not dinosaurs. Now, the next immediate question people ask me when I say that is, okay, so what makes a dinosaur a dinosaur? I'll tell you what it is. It's the hip structure. Hip structure is the first dead giveaway that something is a dinosaur. There are several different types of hip structures that exist in dinosaurs, and they all have one commonality, and that is there is a hole in the middle of the hip that, like, if you're viewing from the side, goes straight through it, and you can see to the other end. If they don't have that, guess what? You're probably not looking at a dinosaur. That is your first dead giveaway. I say probably because in science there are always exceptions. I don't know of an exception off the top of my head, so I'm just playing it safe with the word probably there. So yeah, but yeah, how do you know which dinosaurs were related to each other in terms of evolution? Comparative anatomy. So there is a lot that you can do with just that, but there will always be slip ups, there will always be mistakes and stuff like that. So we know that, okay, let's take a look at T Rex, all right? We know T Rex, which I'm currently dressed as, is related to Tarbosaurus. We know it is also related to Daspletosaurus. Why? Because they all have very similar structures to themselves. They all have big heads. They all possess two fingers on their smaller reduced arms. They all have the same kind of basic anatomical structure to themselves. We know that the other ones are not Carcharodontosaurs or any other type of large theropod because they have fused skulls. There is a line down the top of the skull that fuses the skull together, which is what allows for such heavy bite forces. However, we know that T-Rex is closer in relation to Tarbosaurus than it is to Daspletosaurus because there are more similarities and there is a lot more of those similarities and also between T-Rex and Tarbosaurus. So they are in their own little tribe called the Tyrannosaurinae, or Tyrannosaurinae. That's the word I'm looking for. And we know that Daspletosaurus probably isn't a part of that because there is a lot more morphologically different about Daspletosaurus that it probably is closer in relation to the other North American tyrannosaurs, whereas the lineage that gives us T-Rex is probably migrating from Asia. Now, of course, you do end up with slip-ups. You could accidentally place something like Megaraptors. Megaraptors are a great example of that because their anatomy is so weird and alien compared to other theropods that we would need to find something from either the early Carcharodontosaurid lineage, the Coelurosaurian lineage, or the Tyrannosauroid lineage that would kind of tell us that, like, okay, so this is probably where the Megaraptorids are, right? So, yeah, it gets a bit confusing. But yeah. Kev, any dinosaur as a pet, which one would you choose? If I didn't have to worry about it eating me, my family, or I didn't have to worry about feeding it at all, Nanoxaurus hoglundi. I would move up to Canada. I would live where it was cold all year round because I love the cold, and I would have a pet Nanoxaurus. But yeah. Thank you, Ghoul, or I think that's Ghoul, maybe Ghost. I don't know, I'm gonna call you Ghoul. For the roses, the tiny diny. I appreciate it. What dinosaur is the strongest bite? T-Rex. It's T-Rex. Yeah. T-Rex has the strongest bite force. I think it's got what? I forget what it is in PSI, unfortunately, but it is a really, really strong bite because you can tell in how large the teeth are, as well as the skull anatomy, that it is built to crush. That is why it has the strongest bite force, because it is built to grab and crush, and that's it. That's its whole hunting strategy. Like sneak up on its prey, grab, crush, immobilize, then you eat. So yeah, that's its whole thing. Where was Quetzalcoatlus found? I believe both species of Quetzalcoatlus are found in Texas. You have the species of Northropy and Lawsony. Northropy is the large one. Lawsony is about the size of a person. So yeah. Any dinosaurs in Russia? Yeah, there are plenty. There was, isn't there a species of Psittacosaurus that is literally named Psittacosaurus sibiricus? So yeah, you have like those little guys, the little Psittacosauruses or Psittacosaurus or Taco, depending on how you want to pronounce it. But yeah. All right, I'm gonna try and get a few questions out of the way. Has anyone other than a paleontologist ever found a new species of dinosaur? I don't know. Well, actually, yeah. So, did you know that Giganotosaurus or Giganotosaurus was found on a farm in South America? A farmer found that one. I don't know if he got to name it. He might have. I forget who named it and like who found it, but Giganotosaurus was found by someone who was not looking for a dinosaur bone. There was also Jane, the juvenile T-Rex, which was found by like a family that was going hiking and they thought they saw like a bone sticking out of a rock, so they reported it to like the landowner, and the landowner went out and was like, "Hey, this is a dinosaur. We need to get someone out here to dig this up." So yeah, um, Allosaurus hunt sauropods? Probably not regularly, but it probably would have if it got really desperate. I don't think it would go for full grown adults though. In terms of like juvenile sauropods, oh yeah, definitely. They would prey upon like juvenile or younger sauropods. So yeah. Thoughts on the short faced bear? Pretty cool. Tell me some Carnotaurus facts. We've been talking about Carnotaurus a good bit today. I can tell you that it is possible, and this is a really unfortunate fact about Carnotaurus. It is possible that the original specimen that preserved Carnotaurus likely preserved skin impressions on the skull. And those skin impressions on the skull were destroyed. Because when Carnotaurus was discovered, they probably didn't really, either they didn't notice it or they didn't care. Because there was this huge fascination with just getting the skeletal material back then. And obviously, selling it off and stuff like that. So there's a lot of people who think that Carnotaurus's horns were probably a bit different looking. And they use some of the images of the original Carnotaurus specimen when it didn't have like all of the stuff cleared off of the skull. And like they use that as a reference. So you have different interpretations with that and stuff like that. So yeah. What would be my reaction if non-avian dinosaurs come back? I don't know. I guess that depends on how they come back. I mean, if they're magically all where they were when they were alive, then you're going to have some that are just out in the middle of the ocean drowning, first off. And second off, I think a lot of them would just die. Not because of oxygen content. That doesn't really like play a major role, but more or less in the fact of like they're probably not going to meet their dietary requirements and they're just going to keel over and be gone within like a month's time. So yeah. Thoughts on Saurophaganax? I think it's a sauropod. I think it was a chimerized specimen, and I think Allosaurus anax. That is my opinion on it. As of now, I'm not super opinionated on it. Would not surprise me if it is a theropod. Wouldn't surprise me if it's a chimera. Paleontology is one of the fastest changing sciences in the world, and I think that's a good thing that we can talk about here. Paleontology is a science. And science changes. Science changes when you present it with new evidence. And paleontology happens to be one of those fields where it changes a lot. New evidence gets found, and our interpretations of entire families of dinosaurs can change overnight. And that is a very important thing to remember. That is why my basis for whether or not I like a dinosaur interpretation is based on accuracy. Like, I don't mind Jurassic Park interpretations, but I really like accurate interpretations that take into account like new scientific research and stuff like that. So yeah. All right. So Deltadromeus is cool. Deltadromeus is a really neat noasaur. They're actually in the super family, I think, of Abelisaurids. So they're very strange. But yeah, Deltadromeus is a noasaurid, and they are very strange animals because they look a lot like ornithomimids, but they're not. They're like weird. But yeah. Do you think Spinosaurus? Do you think we get Spinosaurus's appearance extremely wrong? In the past, yes. In the now, no. I think Spinosaurus is pretty set as is. In like the big long tail, the shorter hind limbs, the big muscular forelimbs, the giant sail, the bipedal walking, the elongated snout. I think as of now, Spinosaurus is pretty set. There is a book and a new specimen that are going to be announced fairly shortly in the near future. So stuff might change, stuff might not. This might kind of reiterate everything we've been thinking about Spinosaurus. It might change everything that we know about Spinosaurus. But until that comes out, I am kind of a big fan of the current interpretation. So yeah. What was the full name of Carnotaurus? I know it's 2 words like Spinosaurus aegypticus. Spinosaurus aegypticus actually has an A in front of it. Carnosaurus cesteri, I believe. All dinosaurs have 2 names. You have the genus name and the species name, right? So Tyrannosaurus rex, Tyrannosaurus macraensis, Triceratops prorsus, Triceratops horridus, Velociraptor mongoliensis. Utah raptor Ostromesorum or Ostromyces, or depending on which you can Ostromyci or however it's pronounced. Tyrannotitan tributensis, Giganotosaurus carolini, Tarbosaurus batar, all that good stuff. Quetzalcoatlus northropi, not a dinosaur, but you know you get the picture. So yeah, Tyrannotitan actually, as just as I mentioned that, Tyrannotitan is really cool. And honestly, it is my personal favorite Carcharodontosaurid, and it has an amazing depiction in Path of Titans. I would say that the Tyrannotitan depiction in Path of Titans is probably one of the coolest looking appearances of Tyrannotitan. I really want to get like the PNSO Tyrannotitan figure. Maybe I should make a throne and like set that up in my bio. Have like viewers send it to me. That'd be cool. That'd be neat. Probably not. No, I don't think. No, probably not. But yeah, Tyrannotitan's really neat. I believe it was like at the end of the early Cretaceous or like at the beginning of the late Cretaceous. They would have preyed upon sauropods and stuff like that. Would have been the local apex predator in their formation. So yeah. Okay. Thank you, Tor, for the heart me, and thank you, Victoria, for the love you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Victoria, for the heart me. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and end class here. I apologize if I miss your question. I will reiterate this. If I miss your question, I know I look like a T-Rex right now, and believe me, I'm very hungry for a Triceratops, but I am only human underneath all this. So if I missed your question, you're free to go into the comment section of one of my most recent videos, or you can join the community Discord. The Discord link's weird. You're going to have to open it in a browser if you would like to join the Discord. You can find that in the bio here on, or in my bio here on TikTok. With all that said and done, I'd like to thank every single one of you for attending today's class. Thank you, everyone who stuck with us for the entire stream. Thank you, everyone who liked, commented, shared, and followed. Streams are absolutely nothing without you guys, and I thank every single one of you for attending these classes. And a very special thank you to everyone who gifted. You guys are awesome. I love y'all, and all of that great stuff. Now, with all that said and done, this is officially class dismissed. I will see you again Friday at 2 p.m. Central Time, where we will be holding another dinosaur class, and then I'll see you again Saturday for another dinosaur class at 2 p.m. at around the same time. So I'll see you all Friday, Saturday. So y'all enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you Friday. Y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.